Hello and welcome back to Project Khichdi. This is episode 19. My name is Adithya.
And I'm Robin.
And yeah, we have a really cool episode for you guys today. Actually, it's an episode so cool that I put so much effort into it, and then when the final result came, I was very, very stingy about the result. Wasn't that, Robin?
Yeah. We had actually recorded this episode, and if some the people who at least follow us on Instagram, they must have already seen even the cover for this episode. But then because
there.
but then we had to remove it because of certain editing related issues. But we did mention that we will be revisiting this episode at some point.
Sooner than later, which I'm actually happy about. But we did encounter quite a few technical issues. The thing is, we try to do so. I mean, I've done live demos on this episode on this podcast before, but because Discord only allows you to share one application at a time, it's kind of annoying to keep switching, and then audio issues, and it was a whole thing. You can ask Robin. I was just not very happy with the result. That aside,
but on the contrary, if you heard his voice in the recording, he was probably the happiest because this topic is actually very, very close to him.
Very close, and we'll get into it in a second. But yeah, I mean, I was super excited and stoked for this episode, and I'm just glad we're doing it now. So yeah, with that said, just a quick announcement before we.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. We're on track, no? I haven't.
Yeah, we are on track. We are on track. No, nothing.
All right, peace. Awesome. No, so just a quick announcement. So we plan this project. We plan this podcast as an ongoing thing, but kind of seeing the last 18 episodes and kind of looking at your feedback as an audience and kind of judging what works for us in terms of time commitment, etc. We've decided to break up the podcast into kind of seasons. So as of currently, this is episode 19. As of the next episode, we'll be sort of finishing season.
We'll be marking the completion of the first season.
Sorry, that was a horrible explanation, but
it's okay.
Basically, episode 20 will be the last episode for season 1. The hope is, I mean, we kind of, I guess we've generally understood from feedback on the previous episodes as well as just our experience that we've enjoyed doing kind of shorter episodes, and then going forward, I'll explain a bit more in the next episode, but it might be a bit difficult to do long form, so we may have to sort of rethink that and find the different ways to put out content, which may likely involve shorter form content. Right, so that said, we're trying to sort of rethink things a bit for season 2, and that'll hopefully, I guess, be out. Or we'll start doing that sort of mid-September onwards. But yeah, we'll see. It's all subject to change. Anyway, that was just a quick announcement. We'll elaborate a bit more on that in the next episode. I think that'll be out. This episode should be out on, what's the date? Hold on. This will be out on the 9th of August. The following week, 16th, will be the last episode. So stay tuned.
And we have for the last episode, we have been planning the things to do for the last episode since probably the 10th
beginning.
episode.
No. Easily the 5th.
Even before?
Easily
The 5th. Oh,
we were like,
then
hey,
almost
dude, You only suggested it. You were like, hey, dude, we should do an in-person episode. And then initially it was going to be like a special thing we randomly throw in the middle. But then, with everything that's been happening and stuff, in our lives, we realized that maybe this should just be a season finale. So, no spoilers on that. It'll be a super cool special episode. So do stay tuned. And yeah, with that said, let's get into the topic for today. You're listening to episode 19 of Project Khichdi. Let's go. Okay, Robin. If it's okay with you, I'm gonna go ahead and take
please
control of this episode. I am now the mastermind.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Welcome. This is an episode about, obviously, if you've seen the cover art we posted, a couple of weeks back, then you know for sure what we're going to be talking about today is the Fast and the Furious film, which is basically my favorite film of all time. Like there's no film I enjoy rewatching more than the Fast and the Furious. Right? And in my head, I'm such a fan of this film that not only have I seen it 100 times, my parents have seen it 100 times, and basically in my head, this is the only Fast and the Furious film that exists, and I'll explain why. You see, the first film was made as kind of a tribute to like street racing culture or subculture in Los Angeles in like the late 90s and early 2000s, right? We had import cars, you had muscle cars, people bringing their tuned up vehicles and doing drag races in like a empty street in the middle of nowhere. It was meant to be a niche film, and it did it quite well. Obviously, like the film is, it does fall short on some technical aspects, and sure, some of the writing is a little cringe, but it's still such a nostalgic film for me, and it captures a time, where it's like a shift. It's kind of the shift between, the 20th century and the 21st century. It's kind of in that flux, and it's really, really cool. Anyway, when
was the movie released? 2000 itself,
this is
right?
2001. So
2001,
this is a year after the turn of the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
So you have everything from the 90s coming into the early 2000s. So you have all the popular stuff at the time, the music, the aesthetic, the design, everything carries over. But you've also got this slightly more new stuff, right? And basically, obviously, we can't describing visuals is not going to be possible on a podcast, but essentially, it just works really well. So kind of given that, I recently revisited the film like a month or two back, and I've just started because now obviously listening to it as a musician, an adult musician, I started paying attention to all the music. There's so much to hear in this film, and I just fell in love with the soundtracks. So what we're going to do today is run you through some of the film soundtracks. I'm going to explain why they're so cool and how they're so beautifully crafted and placed in the film. Robin, do you want to add anything quick, or do you want to jump straight into, Fast and Furious?
Just want to credit the artist who's behind the man, the legend. He goes by the short form BT.
BT, which is not some biology term.
Neither does it. It's not even bad trip.
Bad trip, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's short for Brian Transeau. He is he's been doing electronic music for like 30 years. He was starting in the 90s all the way into the early 2000s, and as far as I know, he has a YouTube channel to this day and still uploads music. He's got to be what, like 50?
Yeah, till date, like, you check him out on Spotify. He calls himself BT only on Spotify, BT, and like, I guess you'll see some 2023 albums as well.
Yeah, I think he's, last we checked, we did check with the previous iteration of this episode, he did have some stuff on there. So maybe we'll link the YouTube channel in the description. But basically, the reason we're sort of talking about BT is because he is, and from listening to his music, the music for the film and some of his other stuff, he's a genius, like musical genius in so many ways. I mean, he's definitely influenced by the techno scene, from the late 90s, early 2000s, which is huge, right? He's also got rock influences, and this film really encapsulates that influence. And fusion. And I'll talk about it a bit more, but generally it's very hard to blend electronic music and rock music because oftentimes the instrumentation is so contrasting. Like, it's hard to blend a really big fat synthesizer with a distortion guitar. It's just hard. But somehow this guy just pulls it off flawlessly. And it's amazing. I can't stress enough. But yeah, BT is great. We'll maybe do an episode separately on BT at some point down the line. But let's just quickly jump into the soundtracks from this film. But yeah, that's just that's just my take on what. So I've given you my take on what Fast and Furious means to me. But Robin, do you want to quickly talk about
sure.
why you were also excited for this episode as
Yeah,
well.
so while the movie itself like sort of does not hold as much of a nostalgic value to me as it does to Aditya, because like I did not watch this movie back in 2001 or like in the early 2000s when it was actually popular.
Yeah.
Even though I was like just like Aditya, I still like sort of love like
Cars and
cars in and like
racing, yeah.
yeah and all that in general. But even despite that fact, the music in there holds a nostalgic value to me, because what I like used to do like in the early 2000s was like play a lot of Need for Speed games. And like racing games of that time actually had the same kind of techno music repertoire that you hear in the soundtracks that we'll actually be featuring this episode. So in that sense, it was pretty nostalgic for me as well, like because it instantly takes me back to like one very good memory I have, like I guess it will be like sort of like a core memory, milestone memory, whatever you want to call it, canon event for Spider-Man fans. But
memory unlocked.
Memory unlocked, of my father gifting me the original CD of Need for Speed High Stakes when I was like 7 years old. It was so random because like there's no mention he made of it. It was not my birthday. It was nothing. Like just like one random evening I was playing on the computer and he just comes with the CD and I'm just like, wow. Like I remember being so happy, like, and so grateful. So it's a memory I still hold fondly, and Need for Speed High Stakes, the game itself, like I've enjoyed that game so much.
Yeah, maybe we'll do an episode on Need for Speed game music at some point down the line.
Yeah.
No, I completely relate. I also got into racing at a very early age. Need for Speed, Project Gotham Racing. Oh man, I could be nerdy about this stuff for hours on end, but yeah, I mean the music and just the aesthetic of those games also is very similar to the Fast and the Furious, especially the games before 2007. I think like they're very, very similar. So yeah, with that said, let's just get into the Fast and the Furious. So what we've done is we've only taken songs tracks written by BT for the movie. We're not going to look at any of the externally sourced music by Ja Rule or even Benny Cassett, for example. But the soundtracks themselves are just fantastic. Let me just say. We'll start with the title sequence. We'll play a snippet of it, discuss some of the features, and then we'll kind of sort of go through each track kind of in chronological order of when it shows up in the film. And the tracks, by the way, are named like this, so it's kind of easy to follow. And yeah, we'll just break it down, talk about, I guess, try to analyze, look at some of what BT has done and how it sort of encapsulates the feeling of whatever's happening in the movie whenever the song is playing. So yeah, the first track on the list is actually quite simply called Title Sequence, and I find that beautiful because naming songs is hard. I'll just say it. It's not easy to name songs. I struggle with it. You can ask Robin. Do you remember that folder of old songs I wrote?
I do.
Yeah, I had songs titled Stuff Copy, Bro.
Project
I had one
this.
called LOL. Yeah,
I guess.
I had a track named lol, and it just went on. It was like 20 seconds.
There's this one track, I think it's still there on your Enchant SoundCloud, called Project 47 or something.
Project 41, which I was trying to be. My friend showed me this trapped song. Like, this is like 2016, 2017. I was like, hey, I want to make something like that. So I came up with, you know how like people, it's just cool to name experiments like Project something.
I guess that's where the name for our podcast is also inspired.
Yeah, Project Khichdi. I think I'm just bad at naming things. Although in my defense, I think Project Khichdi is a pretty nice name. But
people like it too. I mean, it's very catchy. Like it stays with you. I mean,
exactly.
Like over time, even like sort of I developed sort of what do you say? Just like a liking to the name. Like it's now sort of something that I identify with as a PK podcaster.
It's a little baby, like we've nurtured it and we've grown it and we're almost done with one season. So yeah, okay. Anyway,
Q for tears here, Jonathan.
Yes. Jonathan, add some. Do you want tears or do you want like a celebratory?
Oh, a little
It's a
mix
happy
of
thing,
both,
right?
I guess. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jonathan, just throw in some crying sounds and some cheers or claps.
Yeah, but not like wailing sounds from like a
Yeah, just like soft, like a whimper.
whimper sounds wrong, dude. Don't give Jonathan like inappropriate instructions.
Okay, you know what? I think we should give Jonathan some creative control.
Yeah.
Go for it, Jonathan. I'm assuming you've done something, but yeah. Anyway, enough distractions. Here is the title sequence for The Fast and the Furious. Let's go.
We in the fast lane, high speed, 1-6, always the reach, a car never could achieve. We battle for position, better watch your step, cause it's one false move and it's life or death. And the way like light and shine in the flash, we go with controls, get blown right past, coming out the night at the speed of light, only the hard and the strong will achieve the height.
Yeah, so that was the first track, and immediately, like, one thing I want to point out, I don't know if you noticed, Robin, but in that track there was this really cool laser sound in the snare. Did you notice it?
Well, I did notice there being like some futuristic element somewhere in the track, but like I couldn't put a finger to it. I guess that's what it must have been, the laser sound.
Even I wasn't exactly able to pinpoint what it was, but then I kind of went back and, like, off the podcast, I did like a little bit of messing around, and I actually discovered it's kind of a laser sound. So you have a regular kick and snare, right, and then on top of that, like, kind of a shooting, a pyong. So that was very bad sound. Jonathan, add that laser sound now. Yeah, so there was a laser sound kind of with the snare, and that's really cool. Like you said, it sounds very futuristic. Just very nice, and I think it's really cool. Like, you can use more than just a snare drum for snare sounds, right? And it's just really cool. And this, by the way, is a recurring element across the soundtracks. You'll hear it in more than one. But yeah, that was the main thing. Second,
and also, I'm like curious as to how he must have like sort of recorded / produced this track back in 2001. So now digital audio workstations have gotten advanced to the point where, like, you know, everything fits in your laptop, and like, you know, the laser sound that we were like just discussing is just like literally one of the sample sounds that's already sampled by the DAW for you. But like in BT's case, doing this way back like in 2001, I wonder how he must have gone around getting samples and like sort of you know, in the especially like internet also was like so nascent at the time. So this is still kind of like just getting into the internet era. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you had dial-up and everything. Yeah, no, it's actually a really good like question. So I actually pondered over this. I've seen some of BT's like not live streams, like there were some home recordings of him sort of in the studio, and there, like, obviously he's working on I don't know what software it was, but he's editing and remixing something. So he's definitely got his own gear to record stuff. As for samples, so it's one of two things. So if you notice, there was a bit of talking in this, right? There was a speech track as well. So I actually discovered this from Deadmau5, who is an electronic musician. Apparently back in the 90s, you used to get these sample CDs. So basically companies would record a bunch of, you know, samples and then sort of put them onto a CD, and you could buy those CDs. So you'll have like random bits of speech, vocal effects, a bunch of stuff, and you could just add them to your own music. The legality of those is questionable, but like those are prevalent, and obviously this is before you had like Splice and all these other libraries to check out, right? So my guess is obviously the instrumentation, so the bass guitar, which I'll come to in a second, the drums and everything would have been recorded or sampled from somewhere. The drums sampled, the bass recorded, and then there's orchestral elements. Now the film was published by Universal Studios, right? So they definitely would have had their own recording studio for orchestral stuff. So I'm 90% sure that was recorded, you know, live. And by the way, it's fantastic. Not the bass, the orchestral stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was definitely
orchestral stuff are you talking about? Like,
you heard the strings in the background?
Oh,
here.
Yeah.
These.
Yeah.
Listen again.
Yeah. No. I got it. wow,
so these
like, I
strings
can't
are,
believe that the orchestral stuff is like, not the center. Like it's kind of like subtle in the background.
it's just
So that
atmospheric. It's
it's
environment
atmospheric,
setting.
yeah. Like you
Yeah.
don't immediately you're not immediately able to think of it, but now when you brought it to my attention, I was like, wow, okay,
Yeah, you don't notice
that
it
added to
initially,
the
but it's
track.
there.
That
And it
added to the
definitely
depth
sets
of
the
the track
scene.
so much.
Yeah. So the purpose of it, I'd assume, is to kind of set the tone of, oh, it's kind of mysterious. So the opening scene is basically okay, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Fast and the Furious, please go watch the film before you watch this podcast. We probably should have made that disclaimer. I'll Jonathan, please add a disclaimer somewhere. But yeah, basically the beginning of the film starts with some of the lead characters, mainly Letty, Dom, and Vince, and I forgot the other guy's name. Leon. Yeah, they're basically smuggling stuff. They're smuggling some DVD players, which again, 2001 DVD players were hot commodities. So this music is kind of it's meant to sort of set the scene and create a sense of suspicion. At least that's what I think. And I think it does a good job. The orchestral elements are very kind of ambient. They're not very in your face, which really helps create an atmosphere of just sort of mystery. So yeah, I mean that's the orchestral stuff, but even beyond that, beyond the drums and beyond the speech, SFX stuff that was there, I think the cool thing is the bass. Now the reason I love this so much is not so much the playing, like that's very kind of, it's very typical pick bass stuff, but the cool thing is actually the tone. If you notice, it's kind of a distortion. It's got a distortion patch. So this definitely would have been recorded on, would have been recorded via an amp or something, a cabinet set up in a studio to get that really kind of crunchy distortion. It also looks like there's a bit of compression on that. Compression, if you don't know what that is basically just, making something louder by reducing the dynamic range. So quieter parts of a recording become louder parts become quieter. So you have a kind of a squished audio file, basically. And that can actually help create distortion. So without getting too technical, it just sounds really, really nice. It's really punchy, it stands out, and it just really drives the kind of rhythm of the track. What do you think, Robin?
I really like the bass in this. Like, even aside from like its musical purpose, it just adds so much energy to the track. Like, it's kind of like, they're up to something sinister. They're up to something high stakes. That like
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, but the bass really sort of drives the high stakes of the scene, essentially.
Yeah, it does, and it really creates a sense of rhythm. And interestingly, like BT follows the same kind of arrangement with like further tracks. So let me actually play you the next. I'll skip to the third track. So there's a scene again in the beginning of the film where the entire cast, the main cast, sort of gets together in one location, which is Dom's and Mia's shop, and there's like a soundtrack for the entire team arriving in very, very fancy looking and very, very appealing looking tuned up cars. So I'm going to play this quickly. Again, pay attention to the drums and bass. You'll hear exactly what I'm talking about.
Dude, when I thought it doesn't get any better, the electric guitar kicks in, man. So cool.
Yeah, this is the thing. So I mentioned earlier that BT just manages to mix electric guitars, rock drums, and orchestral together with electronic stuff, and it sounds so good. I love this part. So in your head, while we're describing this, imagine a bunch of really fancy looking tuned up Japanese import cars turning up or pulling up to the driveway. That's what this scene is, and it's damn cool. It's got everything. So of course the bass, again, that really distorted tone carrying the rhythm. You've got basically, you've got like a very nice sounding acoustic drum kit. a very trashy sounding kit also. So it's not very treated, not very studio sounding. You've got the guitars, again, like distortion guitars. I think, again, BT would have had to play this, or maybe they hired Universal hired a session musician to play the guitar or whatever. But that and all is cool. There's a solo in this, if you noticed, right? Which is like, you've got everything side by side. There's even
It's
this
not
kind
a
of
solo exactly. I think it's more like
ad lib. I don't know exactly what to call it. It's just a guitar lick. And it just sounds so cool.
Yeah,
And
it really works well with the mix.
Judging from the sound, again, I can't confirm. What it sounds like is this was recorded twice. It's a very thick sound, and you can achieve thick sounds with the guitars by actually layering multiple takes of the same thing played on the guitar on top of one another, and it creates like a chorus effect, which makes it sound really thick. So again, like, fantastic lighting on this, and it just sounds so cool. Like, okay, imagine
Did I hear
you're
some
20.
flanger in it? Like flanger.
There was this additional synth layer, which I'm not sure what the tone is. It sounds like a combination of a static sound plus like a guitar that's been morphed. So it's like you take a guitar sound, you remove all of the low end in the guitar, so all you have is the scratchy sound of the strings, right? You add some effect like a phaser or something to it.
Yeah, phaser. Yeah, something like that. I heard, like it that also that very sound in itself is kind of nostalgic, because like a lot of times they would use that, I think, in races, like when you're playing a race, so like to again drive home the whole point of it being like a competitive sort of thing. The stakes are high, it's competitive, you have to race to the finish line. These kind of, the urgency of getting to the finish line.
Yeah, it does create a sense of that urgency. And it just fits the guitar so well. Like, again, the way it's been mixed with the guitar, the actual guitar that's playing, is just really, really smart. So, yeah, I think let's quickly switch over. I want to play one more song that really kind of shows how BT meshes electronic with a little bit of electronic with rock. So this is actually my favorite track from the entire film, which is called The Fourth Floor. And basically, this is the section that, if you've seen the film, Brian O'Connor, the protagonist of our film, turns up in a very nice looking Mitsubishi Eclipse. And
the green one, the iconic,
light green Eclipse, and then starts driving, and like the music and the gear shifts match together. Actually, you know what? Instead of playing the song alone, I'm gonna play the song with the actual scene audio, so you can actually see how the filmmakers match the music with the actual driving. Pay attention to the gear shifts in this.
That Eclipse.
Oh my god,
goodness.
I'm having like chills. I know you can't see my face, but oh my god, this is my favorite scene from the movie. So yeah, a lot to unpack there. Basically, so you heard, I don't know if you were paying attention, you would have definitely heard the laser drums again, very prominent throughout this entire film, and it's good to have consistency. It creates familiarity, right? Mm-hmm. Again, the guitars just, really fast pace, I do what, Jonathan, add a little snippet of the guitars now. Yeah, of course.
All I have to say is the Eclipse entered, all right.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. So, yeah, and then you also have just, there's also these little kind of synth parts that kind of play, again, similar to the previous track, that sort of plays side by side with the guitar, that really, really does well. And there's also this kind of nice breakdown section it was like which is really, really cool. The composition as well as the drums. At the beginning of the track, you would have heard like this sort of really fast, like it's kind of almost like toms on the drum, like tick 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 tum. Sorry, that was very bad. I'll play that section of the audio again here, Jonathan. Yeah, it's just like tuned drums, which again really sounds nice, creates a sense of energy. Again, just
the guitar also it was just like then the toms thing
it's just like
I really like that.
It's very well produced, because you hear kind of the really scratchy sound of the guitar, which is what you like to hear from distortion guitars, right?
Yeah.
I think again overall a fantastically written track. Oh my god, just chills coming out from that. I think we have time for one more.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna do is there's actually a section where there's a scene where after the first race of the film, Brian O'Connor saves Dominic Toretto from the police. And again, this track is fantastic because the music is synced up with the gear shifts, right? And which I think is it's such an important filmmaking technique as well as audio writing technique for films, right? Which is you want everything to sync up and match, like it was intended to be that way, right? There's some intentional pace to the film. Is that you want to create that?
So the music was made around the gear shift, like they heard gear shift and then they made the music.
It's possible.
Around.
It's possible. So you maybe the scene was shot, some sound effects would add it in, and then the music was written to sort of fit the pace of that. Maybe some editing tweaks as well. I'm not sure. I'm not a film expert. If any of you guys in the audience are, do comment and let us know what you think it is. But at least that's my speculation. Anyway, here is something similar. The track is called Brian Saves Dominic. I feel like you don't have to really do much in terms of naming your tracks for the film, but yeah, here it is. Yeah, you could almost track the entire film or visualize the entire film in your head just by these soundtracks. If you notice, again, the gear shifts, the police sirens, everything matches up with the drums, right?
What I find impressive is they're adding so many different sounds which are like very different from the sounds, the general sound samples of the instruments alone. Like a police siren sounds so different from let's say a guitar or like a synth, and yet they're able to sort of mix it in such a way that it all looks like a part of one cohesive track.
It does,
nothing,
right?
Yeah, nothing sort of is jarring, standing out, and you're like, oh, it's interfering with the track. Yeah,
exactly. It's almost like the police siren was written the police car drove, and had the siren on intentionally in that whatever time frame, right? It just fits so well. The gear shifts. Yeah. It is for an audiophile or somebody who's just like I'm a drummer, right? I love things that are on time. In music. Time management in life, different concept, but yeah. No, but yeah, I think it's just great when you have audio and the visuals and all these sound effects synced up. It sounds so pleasing, and this film really, really does it. I think if anything, if you want to take anything away from this film, it's just such a cool movie to sit and watch, because you just there's no one point in the film I feel like I'm missing out on the action. It did a good job, all of its flaws aside. It's just fantastic. And that's not even the end. There's still more in terms of there's a lot more synth stuff in this film that BT does. There's a trance track. techno kind of thing. You got some cool electronic stuff as well. Unfortunately, you don't have time for it. But what I'll do is what we'll do is we'll attach this entire playlist. We're using a playlist that someone. I'll just name the name of the uploader. Fast and Furious FM is the name of the channel, and this is uploaded.
Shout out to that channel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And this playlist is over a decade old, so it's not even recent. So yeah, shout out to F&F FM for the playlist. We'll share the entire thing. Do check out the tracks; they're fantastic. And now for a bit of conclusion. Why on earth are we presenting game music? Well, not game, sorry, film music. Game music is another topic and also important.
Honestly, actually, I can see why you made that mistake, because the film music, so to speak, in this one is so similar to the game music of the same era, like Need for Speed, as I mentioned. So pretty
not
cool.
even just, I'd say, that's one thing, the aesthetic similarities, but also just like game music and film music, I think, is some of the best there is. It's really the pinnacle of what we can achieve with audio, because there the focus may not necessarily just be capturing emotions. It's also capturing, ambience and just doing really cool stuff. And especially when you jump into the electronic space, the possibilities are endless. Like I have been working with synths since I was 15, and I don't know even like 10 or 15% of what people do. BT is, I guess, one of those people that just has been in the audio space for a long time before computers, and so has a lot of knowledge on synths and just sound design.
And there's like another sort of small question in there that I sort of am thinking about, more like a reflective kind of thing, which is a lot of times, I guess, when you produce music, you're not like sort of producing music to pair it with like a visual sort of medium. You're just like sort of thinking about it from the point of view of this will be consumed solely as an audio medium. But for like artists like BT who are working with film producers, they have to make sure that their music does not just in and of itself sound good, but also works well with what is being shown on film. So I guess the creative process there must be like very different.
Absolutely, it really is. And I think I don't know, I feel like I'm slowly gravitating in that direction, because I mean, songwriting, again, there's so much you can do with songwriting itself. But yeah, when you're writing for a film and when you're really expanding, I think if I were to make like a scale, like basically a scale of just complexity of music, you have film is sort of like second, for on top you have game music, because game music also just needs to be dynamic, right? This is a bit more in terms of production and editing you have to do. I put songwriting at the bottom, not because it's, again, any less of a creative process, but again, just in terms of, it's like it's like a spectrum of different priorities, essentially. And yeah, like I said, it's just amazing to hear such great music. And I think whether you're a producer, whether you're a listener of music, whether you just like films, if you start to look into the music, you will be surprised at what people can achieve just by manipulating sound. It is truly fascinating. And yeah, on that note, I'm happy we got to the end of this episode. Again, like I said, this is my favorite film of all time. Nothing I've watched has come close.
So this is your cue to go right now and watch Fast and Furious, the first
Please
part,
go.
and the first part only, as Adithya would say.
Yeah, the other films are all just fan service, and honestly, I'm tired of Dom saying family in every film. Listen, now they've also got the latest film also has Jason Momoa. I'm like, okay, you know what? This is not Marvel. Stop bringing every popular art actor into the franchise.
Is the 10th film the final film, or are
no? Apparently there's gonna be a Fast 11, Fast 12. There's actually a video on YouTube, which again I'm also gonna link. It's called Fast 89, or no, Fast 99. Basically, it's parody YouTube animation of just like Dom letting everyone in their like 80s, and they're still making Fast and Furious films. Somehow they still have enemies.
Wow.
Anyway,
I just hope that at some point they go back to the racing subculture themes.
They won't. They absolutely won't, because again, it's a very niche audience, and I think that kind of racing also has had its time. At least in that particular aesthetic,
You're saying that it's not as much a part of the public imagination as it used to be
I
back
don't
then.
think so. I mean, you have cars and racing games, but if you look at the design of, again, this is a whole other conversation. Maybe I'll start the Fast and the Furious fan podcast, or maybe this is already on. I don't know. But yeah, basically, if you look at the design and the music and everything, it's so different. This is an era of time that this film just somehow manages to encapsulate and capture, youth culture of the late 90s and early 2000s. So, yeah, good film. Go watch. Go check out the music. Thanks so much for listening to this episode.
Thanks
hope you
for
enjoyed
watching.
it.
No, sorry, listening. Thanks for
listening, my friend.
Yeah, listening.
And stay tuned for our special episode coming up next week. Season finale. Bring popcorn, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, see you guys.
We should bring popcorn, I guess, as well.
Yeah. Now I'm hungry.
Actually, I don't like popcorn. Something else.
Disgrace. Okay. Bye.